Hello. Dear readers and listeners, how are you all? I hope you are well. I am also well. But if you like this video and subscribe to this channel, Boring History for Sleep, then we will be even better. So, those who have not yet liked and subscribed to the channel, like and subscribe now and press the bell icon. Let's go back to the story without saying much. The Pharaoh's Shadow, a chronicle of Kemet's unbroken thread. The greatest secret of the pharaohs is not hidden in the tombs, but woven into the very fabric of time. What if a man lived through 3 millennia of Egyptian history, bound by an ancient, terrible duty? His name is Khenti, and his chronicle is the true history of Kemet. Book 1. The Architects of Stone. The Old Kingdom, c. 2600 BCE. The desert air, sharp with the tang of sandstone dust and the sweat of 10,000 men, was the only world Khenti had ever known. He was a young man, barely 20 cycles of the Nile floods, a time when the inundation was not just a season, but the breath of life itself. His muscles ached with the rhythmic hauling of ropes, but his spirit soared higher than the massive limestone blocks he helped drag up the ramp of the Great Pyramid of Khufu, which the Greeks would one day call Cheops. Contrary to the whispers of foreign merchants and the fanciful tales of distant lands, the workers were not slaves. They were Kemeticians, farmers, artisans, and laborers, paid in beer, bread, and the sacred honor of building a celestial bridge for their divine pharaoh. Khenti, a skilled stone dresser from the Delta, felt the Ka, the life force of his ancestors in every tool strike. One scorching noon, while dressing a massive casing stone, a section of the block face flaked off, revealing a vein of obsidian so dark it seemed to swallow the sunlight. Carved into the obsidian was a symbol Khenti had never seen, not a known hieroglyph, but a coiled serpent consuming its own tail, the Ouroboros. As his finger traced the cool, polished stone, a strange electric hum vibrated through his bones. Time seemed to warp. The shouts of the foreman, the scraping of stone, the distant lowing of oxen, all faded into a hollow silence, replaced by a chorus of whispers in a language long dead, echoing from the very bedrock of the Giza Plateau. He kept the fragment hidden, fearing the priests of Ra, who guarded the purity of the pharaoh's purpose. But that night, the whispers coalesced into a single commanding voice. It was the voice of the Neterchert, the realm of the dead, and it named him, Khenti, keeper of the unbroken thread. The voice explained his destiny. He was now bound to the stone of perpetuity, the obsidian heart of Khufu's pyramid. He would not age, he would not die, and he would witness the entire span of Kemet, from its golden age to its eventual shadow, ensuring that the original covenant between the gods and the first pharaohs was never fully severed. His curse, or his gift, was that his memories would not just be his own, but would absorb the accumulated wisdom and sorrow of every generation. The first test of his immortality was brutal. A sudden ramp collapse shattered the legs of the worker next to him. Khenti rushed forward, feeling a weight of stone crush his own chest. He should have died instantly. Instead, a searing white-hot pain, a cosmic reforging, enveloped him. When the dust cleared, the other worker was gone, pulled out by others. Khenti stood up, his linen tunic ripped, his chest bruised, but unbroken. No one noticed. He knew then that the stone's magic worked best in the chaos of creation, concealing his anomaly within the immensity of the task. He watched Khufu's final resting place sealed, a perfect geometric wonder. He saw the shift from the solar cult of Ra, ascendant under Khufu, to the burgeoning cult of Osiris, and the belief in the eternal afterlife, which the common people cherished more than the cold, distant sun god. He learned the subtle difference between the Iri Pat, the hereditary nobles, and the Semachast, the common folk whose hands built the monuments of the divine elite. The pyramid was complete, a miracle of engineering. The precise angle of the sides, 51 degrees, 52 minutes, was not accidental, but a deliberate effort to capture the celestial geometry. But the seeds of discord, a bloated bureaucracy, and regional governors growing too powerful were already sown. Khenti understood. The greatest empire would always be brought low not by external foes, but by the relentless, slow decay of its own human heart. Book 2. The Divided Land. The First Intermediate Period, c. 2181 BCE. Centuries passed as if they were but a blink of the eye of Ra. The powerful old kingdom fractured. The Nile's life-giving inundation failed for years on end, a drought that drove the people to desperation and turned the nome governors, the local rulers, into petty warlords. The belief in the central authority of the pharaoh crumbled, replaced by a brutal regionalism that Khenti had foreseen. Now calling himself Khenti Nether, Khenti the Beautiful, he was a master scribe in the court of a Theban nomarch in Upper Egypt. He was a walking library, his mind filled with the detailed tax rolls of the 4th dynasty and the celestial charts used by the pyramid builders. He observed the stark shift in Egyptian art and literature. No longer did the literature focus solely on the glory of the divine king. It was now filled with lamentations and admonitions, texts that questioned the justice of the gods and the wisdom of the former rulers. The tale of the eloquent peasant, a popular story, perfectly captured the era's mood. A downtrodden commoner demanding justice, no longer simply accepting his fate. In his time as a scribe, Khenti Nether utilized the amazing medical knowledge of the ancient Egyptians. He treated the nomarch's son using a technique learned from the time of Imhotep, a poultice of moldy bread, one of the earliest forms of penicillin, to treat an infected wound, a fact that would have astonished a physician from a less advanced culture. The division reached its peak during a siege. The nomarch's fortress was surrounded by the forces of a rival from the north. The city was starving. Khenti, driven by his duty to the unbroken thread to preserve Kemet, knew that he had to act. He slipped past the siege lines at night, his face cloaked, wearing the simple shenti kilt of a traveler. He carried nothing but the ancient obsidian shard, now cool and comforting in his palm. He journeyed north to the camp of the attacking nomarch, Intef, a man of fierce ambition, but also great honor. Khenti Nether, using his flawless command of the sophisticated court language of the Old Kingdom, addressed Intef not as a rival, but as a misguided son of Horus. Lord Intef, Khenti declared, his voice ringing with the authority of centuries, you seek to rule a fractured land. The 2 crowns, the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt, are meant to be one, unified by the Sema Tawi, the binding of the 2 lands. You fight a war of men, but Maat, the principle of cosmic balance, weeps at your ambition. The Nile star Sothis rises in sorrow, not joy. Khenti Nether then spoke of the true meaning of the pharaoh's role, citing passages from the pyramid texts that only the highest priests of the Old Kingdom had ever known, knowledge that should have been lost to the sands. He revealed astonishingly accurate details of Intef's own distant ancestry, linking him directly to a noble line that served under the 5th dynasty. Intef, a man raised on the legends Khenti recounted, was utterly astonished. He saw not merely a scribe, but a divine messenger, a living vessel of the past. The impact was profound. Intef, humbled and inspired by the vision of a glorious unified Egypt, lifted the siege. This single calculated act of rhetorical genius, using lost knowledge as a weapon, marked the beginning of the Theban ascension and the eventual reunification of the land under the pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom. Khenti Nether, having nudged the great river of history back onto its course, melted back into the shadows of the temples, a timeless observer once more.
Book 3, The Golden Age and the Heretic, the New Kingdom, c. 1400 BCE. The New Kingdom dawned, a period of unprecedented power, wealth, and empire. Khenti, now known as Khenti Amen, Khenti the Hidden, was a high priest in the opulent temple complex of Amun-Ra at Karnak, the largest religious structure ever built. He oversaw a priesthood so wealthy it rivaled the state treasury, a fact that filled him with ancient dread. The balance was tilting. The priests of Amun, the king of the gods, were becoming too powerful, overshadowing the pharaoh himself. His duty as the keeper was to observe and, if necessary, correct. He found his opportunity in the most radical figure in Kemet's history, Amenhotep IV, who would rename himself Akhenaten. Khenti Amen became Akhenaten's personal advisor in the early years. He saw in the young pharaoh a blazing spiritual zeal that threatened the Amen priesthood, a zealousness Khenti could use. Akhenaten was convinced of a new, singular truth, that the true and only God was the Aten, the visible disk of the sun, the source of all life. This was not a polytheistic reform, it was monotheism, a revolution. Khenti Amen supported the move, guiding Akhenaten with strategic advice derived from his memories of the Old Kingdom's pure focus on Ra. This was a direct assault on the economic and spiritual power of the Amen cult. Under Khenti's covert guidance, the pharaoh moved the capital, abandoning the centuries-old seat of power at Thebes for a desolate, untouched site in Middle Egypt, Akhet-Aten, the horizon of the Aten, today known as Amarna. Khenti Amen witnessed the most astonishing cultural transformation in Egyptian history. The traditional, rigid art style was replaced by the Amarna style, intimate, fluid, and surprisingly realistic portraits of the royal family, including the beautiful Nefertiti. He saw the creation of the Hymn to the Aten, a poem of sublime spiritual beauty that championed the merciful, universal nature of the new god, a stark contrast to the stern, demanding gods of the past. He learned that women in this court, particularly Nefertiti, held immense, almost equal power, a continuation of the unique rights and freedoms Egyptian women had long enjoyed, which amazed foreign envoys. But he also saw the folly. Akhenaten's zeal led to tyranny. He became so obsessed with his new religion and his new city that he neglected the vast Egyptian empire. The gold from Nubia and the tribute from the Levant slowed to a trickle. Letters from vassal kings begging for Egyptian military aid went unanswered, documented on the now famous Amarna letters, cuneiform tablets Khenti himself filed away. Akhenaten's singular focus was beautiful, but it was not Maat. It lacked balance. After Akhenaten's death, Khenti Amen shifted his allegiance to the young, sickly successor, Tutankhaten, a mere boy who was quickly forced to change his name to Tutankhamun and abandon Akhet-Aten. Khenti served as a silent advisor to the powerful Vizier A and General Horemheb, the men who truly ran the country. Khenti Amen led the initial procession back to Thebes, overseeing the destruction of the Aten temples and the restoration of the Amen cult. It was a heart-wrenching moment. He knew the monotheistic dream was a failure, but he also knew that its failure was necessary to restore the stability and power of Kemet's empire. The thread, though frayed, had to remain unbroken. He lived long enough to witness the ascension of the greatest of the New Kingdom pharaohs, Ramesses II, Ramesses the Great. Khenti, now an aging court sage known as Khenti Sesh, Khenti the Scribe, was instrumental in transcribing and verifying the famous Treaty of Kadesh, the earliest surviving peace treaty in world history, a testament to diplomacy that ended the long, brutal war with the Hittite Empire. He stood in the dazzling, sun-drenched Ramesseum, watching the construction of the colossal statues, knowing that this was the final, breathtaking peak before the long, slow descent into the shadows. Book 4, The Shadow of the Ptolemies, the Late Period and Beyond, c. 332 BCE. The millennia that followed were a blur of invasions, Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, Persians, and finally the Greeks. Khenti had to change his name and identity countless times, from Khenti Sa, Khenti the Sun, to Khenti Heru, Khenti the Falcon. He watched the construction of the Serapeum in Memphis, the labyrinthine burial complex for the sacred Apis bulls, animals revered as a manifestation of the god Ptah. When Alexander the Great strode into Egypt, Kenty-Heru was an elderly priest in the temple of Ptah. He saw the Macedonian conqueror crowned pharaoh and watched the founding of Alexandria, a city of breathtaking cosmopolitanism centered around the legendary library. This new city, not Thebes or Memphis, became the heart of Egypt, drawing Kenty to it. Under the Ptolemaic dynasty, the Greek-speaking rulers who inherited the land, Kenty-Heru became a scholar in the library, now styling himself Kentis, a Greek transliteration. He taught mathematics, geometry, and astronomy, all knowledge he had preserved from the earliest dynasties. He witnessed the rise of figures like Euclid and Archimedes, seeing the ancient Egyptian understanding of geometry formalized into new Western systems. He felt the ironic pride of watching Greek scholars study scrolls he had, in another lifetime, transcribed himself. His final chapter played out in the court of Cleopatra VII, the last true pharaoh of Egypt. Kentis, now a wizened, nearly blind historian, was her most trusted, if silent, counselor. He admired her intelligence, her mastery of 8 languages, a rarity in her dynasty, and her fierce determination to restore Kemet to its former glory. He was present when Julius Caesar arrived, captivated by her charm and power. He was there when Mark Antony sacrificed the peace of Rome for her. Kentis recognized the tragedy. Cleopatra was trying to run an empire in the mode of the New Kingdom, a glorious, expansive empire in a world dominated by the ruthless, pragmatic legions of Rome. It was an impossibility. In 30 BCE, as the armies of Octavian closed in, Kenty stood by Cleopatra in her chamber. She was magnificent, draped in the silks of a pharaoh, preparing her final act. "Kentis," she whispered, in perfect ancient Egyptian, "when I cross the Duat, will the gods remember me as a true daughter of the Nile or a Greek pretender?" Kentis, the keeper of the unbroken thread, the man who built Khufu's tomb, guided Intef, and advised Akhenaten, reached into the pocket of his robe. He pulled out the fragment of obsidian, its serpent and tail symbol glowing faintly in the flickering torchlight. He said, "Divine Pharaoh, the gods know the purity of your intent. When you step into the western horizon, you will face the judgment of Osiris. And when you are asked for your negative confession, if you have maintained Maat, you will be judged by the weight of your heart against the feather of truth, and your heart will be true. You, more than any Ptolemy, understood the soul of Kemet." Cleopatra smiled, a fleeting moment of peace before the final poison. As the Romans stormed the palace, Kentis, the eternal Egyptian, walked calmly out into the chaos. The obsidian stone pulsed, absorbing the final brilliant spark of the pharaonic age. He let the heat of the fire engulf him. When the Roman soldiers found him later, he was a nameless, wizened old man, utterly incinerated, leaving behind only a curious, small fragment of black polished stone, which an officer pocketed as a trinket. He would never know that the man he found was over 3,000 years old, and that the trinket he stole was the oldest surviving piece of the true, unbroken soul of Kemet. Kenty is still there, of course. Now he is a quiet curator in a museum in Cairo, or a thoughtful Egyptologist at a prestigious American university, or perhaps a guide at the Great Pyramids. He is always watching, always remembering. His beard is flecked with gray now, his eyes the color of the ancient Nile, deep and wise. He is the guardian of the thread, waiting for the time that the light of Kemet will rise again, one day, one moment, in the mind of a curious child from America, reading a book of astonishing stories.
Crown 2. The Divided Land. Expanded Chronicle. The Shattering of Ma'at. c. 2200 BCE. The collapse wasn't a sudden cataclysm. It was the slow, agonizing erosion of Ma'at, the cosmic order and justice that the Old Kingdom was founded upon. Khenti, who had witnessed the seamless unity of Khufu's reign, now saw the realm dissolving into petty fiefdoms. He had shed the name Khenti, too famous, too associated with the glorious past. He now called himself Seneb Khenti. Khenti is healthy, or Khenti is well, a hopeful name in a time of sickness and starvation. The primary culprit was not foreign invasion, but the relentless failure of the inundation. The Nile, Kemet's lifeblood, grew sullen. For over 2 decades, the floodwaters did not reach the crucial height required to deposit the rich black silt onto the upper fields. The Nilometer readings, meticulously tracked by Seneb Khenti in his capacity as a minor temple scribe in Abydos, confirmed the disaster. The necessary height for a perfect flood was around 16 cubits at the Rhoda Island gauge. The readings were consistently hovering around 10 or 11 cubits. The resulting famine was brutal. The people, seeing the pharaoh in Memphis powerless against the capricious will of the gods, lost faith in his divine mandate. The nomarchs, regional governors, who had grown powerful by passing their titles down hereditarily, seized local control. They hoarded the dwindling grain supplies, turning their nomes into independent kingdoms. The central authority disintegrated, leading to a breakdown in law and order, known to historians later as the First Intermediate Period. Seneb Khenti observed the shift in power dynamics firsthand. He lived in terror of the Chemeni, local militia who served the various nomarchs, often preying on the weak. The sophisticated bureaucratic system that organized the construction of the pyramids vanished, replaced by a brutal survivalist ethos. The wisdom of sorrow, new literary forms. This era of suffering paradoxically birthed some of ancient Egypt's deepest philosophical literature. Seneb Khenti worked in a scriptorium, transcribing the new forms of writing that emerged. Lamentations. Texts like the Admonitions of Ipiware expressed profound despair, questioning why Ra had allowed chaos to rule. Seneb Khenti recognized the historical value of these texts. They were the first time in Egyptian history that the common people's suffering was openly voiced and recorded, moving away from the purely celebratory royal decrees of the Old Kingdom. Instruction texts. Works like the Instruction for King Merikare provided practical, cynical advice for the local rulers, how to deal with internal rebellion, how to manage the treasury, and the importance of acting justly, if only to maintain power. Seneb Khenti found a grim irony in transcribing lessons on how to rule an empire when the empire itself had ceased to exist. He meticulously preserved these scrolls, knowing they held the collective sorrow and eventual wisdom of the era, the necessary experience before reunification could occur. He learned that the true threat of Kemet was not the pharaoh, but the knowledge, the Seba itself. The rise of Thebes and Intef's destiny. Seneb Khenti realized that the center of gravity was shifting south to Waset, Thebes in Upper Egypt. The Theban nomarchs, shielded slightly from the worst of the delta-based chaos, were slowly gaining strength. Their ruling family, the Intefs, were ambitious, disciplined, and claimed descent from the warrior rulers of the past. Seneb Khenti migrated south, taking a position as a senior sesh, scribe or counselor, in the court of Intef II. He was an unassuming figure, his ancient memories serving as an unparalleled source of military intelligence and historical precedent. When the inevitable clashes with the northern rulers of Heracleopolis began, Senebkenti was Intef II's silent weapon. His key moment came during a major diplomatic crisis. A northern nomarch, emboldened by a minor victory, sent a scathing letter mocking Intef II's lineage and demanding tribute. The letter contained historical errors regarding the precise protocol for addressing a pharaoh's representative using outdated Old Kingdom terms that had been retired during the 5th dynasty. Senebkenti seized the opportunity. He drafted Intef II's blistering reply, but unlike a standard insult, he crafted a perfect, historically impeccable document. He corrected the northern nomarch's protocol errors, citing precise, archaic legal texts that only someone with access to the highest-level archives of the 4th dynasty could know. He then detailed the ancestral line of the Intefs, using funerary epitaphs from the pre-dynastic period, knowledge utterly lost to common scholarship, thereby validating Intef II's claim to legitimacy while simultaneously exposing the northern ruler as an uneducated pretender. The effect was instantaneous and profound. The northern nomarch's own advisors were stunned and frightened. They saw the response not merely as diplomatic rhetoric, but as evidence of divine favor, that the Theban ruler had access to the forbidden, forgotten knowledge of the gods themselves. This single act of historical warfare paralyzed the North, giving Intef II the psychological edge. The slow, methodical military conquest that followed, culminating in the establishment of the 11th dynasty and the eventual reunification of Egypt under Mentuhotep II, was built upon this foundation of strategic awe and fear, all engineered by Senebkenti, the keeper of the unbroken thread. He ensured that the new dynasty understood that their power must once again be centralized, lest the shadow of the divided land fall upon Kemet again. The Middle Kingdom was born from the trauma he helped manage.
Book 3, The Golden Age of Refinement, The Middle Kingdom, approximately 2040 to 1782 BCE. The reunification under Mentuhotep II of the 11th dynasty brought peace, but the scar of the first intermediate period remained. The Egyptian psyche had been shattered. The divine order was no longer taken for granted. Khenti, now known as Khenti Seba, Khenti the Wise, served the new dynasty as a trusted royal architect and administrator. He specialized in restoring the desecrated temples and re-establishing the elaborate state bureaucracy that had collapsed. The architecture of authority. Unlike the massive, almost intimidating grandeur of the Old Kingdom pyramids, the architecture of the Middle Kingdom was characterized by refinement and subtlety. Khenti Seba understood the need to rebuild trust, not just tombs. He oversaw the construction of Mentuhotep II's mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a revolutionary design that combined the cliff tomb, a necessity in the Theban area, with a terraced colonnaded structure. His most crucial work was related to the shift in royal tombs. The pharaohs of the 12th dynasty, fearing the vulnerability of giant pyramids to grave robbers, a problem Khenti Seba knew from millennia of experience, began hiding their burial chambers deep within the Fayum oasis, constructing their pyramids from mud brick and concealing their entrances. Khenti Seba helped design the labyrinth near the pyramid of Amenemhat III at Hawara, a monumental complex of courtyards, halls, and chambers so confusing and large that it confounded visitors for centuries, fulfilling its function of protecting the sacred remains. The complexity was rooted in the knowledge Khenti Seba had retained from the earliest mastabas. The purpose of the structure was to confuse the spirit of any intruder, ensuring the pharaoh's safe journey to the afterlife. the democratization of the afterlife. One of the most profound social-religious changes Kenti Seba observed was the democratization of the afterlife. In the Old Kingdom, the pyramid texts, the spells for eternal life, were exclusive to the pharaoh. The intermediate period had changed this forever. During the Middle Kingdom, the funerary spells were adapted for the nobility and common people, written on their wooden coffins. These were the coffin texts. Kenti Seba oversaw the transcription and distribution of these spells, noting the new emphasis on Osiris, the god of the dead, rather than the distant sun god Ra. He realized this shift was crucial. The idea that any righteous Egyptian could achieve immortality, not just the king, fostered national unity and provided a powerful spiritual counterweight to the political chaos of the past. The Book of the Dead began to evolve from these coffin texts, offering detailed maps and guides for the Duat, the underworld. Kenti Seba ensured the accuracy of the spells, particularly the crucial chapter 125, the negative confession, where the deceased must swear they have not committed sins against Ma'at. He saw his own duty reflected in this. He was the living embodiment of the unbroken Ma'at. A scribe's private anguish. Despite the outward splendor, Kenti Seba felt the existential weight of his longevity. The literature of the Middle Kingdom was marked by a deep introspective quality, best exemplified by the tale of Sinuhe, a story of a courtier who flees Egypt and is ultimately welcomed home. Kenti Seba often felt like Sinuhe, an exile in his own timeless land. During this period, he befriended a young, brilliant scribe named Ayaret. She was sharp, witty, and deeply devoted to the pharaoh Senuseret III, one of Kemet's greatest warrior kings. Kenti Seba loved her company, finding in her questions and enthusiasm a fleeting connection to the fleeting beauty of mortal life. He worked alongside her on the Semna dispatches, detailed military reports from the fortresses Senuseret III established to control Nubia and secure the gold trade. His ancient heart ached when she fell ill with a fever. He used all his stored knowledge, herbal remedies, basic sanitation protocols learned from the time of the pyramid builders, but the stone of perpetuity only granted him immunity. He could not save her. He watched her die, a pain that was now a frequent visitor. He engraved her name, Ayaret, into the underside of the obsidian fragment, a silent addition to the thousands of lost souls he carried. As Kenti Seba oversaw the transition to the next dynasty, the stability he helped build began to crack. The nomarchs, though weakened, still resented centralized power. The stage was being set for a new era of darkness, the invasion of the Hyksos, and Kenti Seba knew he would have to endure the shattering of Ma'at once more.
Book 4, The Foreign Yoke, the Second Intermediate Period, c. 1782 to 1570 BCE. The stability of the Middle Kingdom was a facade, and Khenti, who now called himself Khenti Nechet, Khenti the Strong, watched as the land fractured again. Only this time, the collapse was triggered by an external force, the Hyksos. The arrival of the rulers of foreign lands. The Hyksos were a group of foreign settlers, primarily of Semitic origin, who had slowly infiltrated the eastern delta during the weak later 13th dynasty. They were not a single unified army, but rather a slow, steady wave of migration that eventually gained political control. Khenti Nechet witnessed their rise to power from his vantage point as a river inspector near the delta. The Egyptian army, still reliant on the traditional infantry and bronze weapons of the Middle Kingdom, was brutally unprepared for the military technology the Hyksos brought. The horse-drawn chariot, a fast, maneuverable platform for archers, giving them overwhelming battlefield mobility. The Egyptian soldiers had never encountered horses in warfare. The composite bow, a powerful bow made of wood, horn, and sinew with far greater range and force than the Egyptians' simple wooden bows. And advanced bronze weaponry, sturdier swords and daggers superior to the copper and early bronze tools the Egyptians still largely used. Around 1650 BCE, the Hyksos consolidated power, establishing their capital at Avaris, modern-day Tel el-Daba, in the Delta. They ruled the north, becoming the 15th dynasty, while Egyptian rule was reduced to a small vassal state in the south, centered on Thebes, Waset. The unbroken thread of Kemet was officially severed. The pharaoh was now a puppet, paying tribute to a foreign king. Life under the yoke. For over a century, Khentinechet lived under the watchful eye of the Hyksos. His memories of the Middle Kingdom's philosophical depth turned to bitter cynicism. The Hyksos rulers, though they adopted Egyptian titles and claimed to worship Egyptian gods, especially the storm god Seth, whom they equated with their own storm deity Baal, were seen by the native Egyptians as barbaric occupiers. Khentinechet used his expertise to serve the Hyksos administration in Avaris as a clerk, secretly observing and documenting their military strengths and weaknesses. He found a strange solace in the massive fortifications the Hyksos built around Avaris, a stark reminder that even conquerors fear being conquered. During this period, Khentinechet was forced to participate in the most humiliating act of the occupation, the tribute caravan. Every year, he would travel south with the Hyksos emissaries to Thebes, watching the native Egyptian royal family, the 17th dynasty, hand over massive quantities of gold, papyrus, and cattle to the foreign rulers. The Theban pharaohs, though powerless, maintained their royal dignity, a flicker of Ma'at in the darkness. The spark of rebellion, the Theban struggle. The turning point came with the rising ambition of the Theban royal family. Khentinechet, risking certain death, managed to flee Avaris and travel south to Thebes, presenting himself to Pharaoh Seqenenre Tao II. He brought with him the most crucial piece of intelligence, detailed drawings and schematics of the Hyksos' military technology, specifically the chariot design and the method for forging the composite bow. He also brought the ancient and burning spirit of the Old Kingdom. "Pharaoh," Khentinechet whispered in the privacy of the Temple of Amun, "your ancestors carved the mountains and made the sun obey. You must not merely fight, you must become them. Take their weapons, learn their machines. You must fight as a pharaoh of the new kingdom, not the last shadow of the old." Seqenenre Tao II was a warrior, deeply insulted by a trivial Hyksos complaint about the noise of his hippos in the Theban swamps, a thinly veiled excuse for war. Armed with Khentinechet's intelligence, the Thebans began to secretly train a new army. They learned to breed horses, build chariots, and craft composite bows. Khentinechet oversaw the secret manufacture of these weapons in the hidden workshops of the Theban temples. The inevitable conflict was brutal. Seqenenre Tao II was killed in battle. Khentinechet later saw his mummy, the terrifying, realistic head wounds showing the savagery of the conflict, a testament to the fact that the pharaoh died fighting the Hyksos with their own weapons. His son Kamose continued the war, pushing the Hyksos back. Khentinechet served as Kamos's military strategist, advising on the logistics of supplying an army far from the Nile's predictable supply lines. The final act belonged to Amos I, Kamos's younger brother. Khentinechet was by his side as Amos I besieged Avaris. The battle was long and difficult, but the newly mechanized Egyptian army, now fully adopting and mastering the Hyksos' own technology, was victorious. Amos I chased the defeated Hyksos out of Egypt and deep into Canaan. The expulsion of the Hyksos marked the beginning of the New Kingdom, the golden age of Egyptian empire. Khentinechet watched as Amos I was crowned, having achieved the liberation of Kemet.
The unbroken thread was not only restored, but forged stronger, now incorporating the lessons of the foreign invader. Gentinehet understood true Khmetan strength was not resistance to change, but the ability to absorb, adapt, and ultimately master its rivals' innovations. He was ready to witness the ascent of a global superpower.
Book 5. The Zenith of Empire. The New Kingdom, circa 1570 to 1400 BCE. The expulsion of the Hyksos and the reunification under the 18th dynasty ushered in the New Kingdom, the pinnacle of Egyptian power, wealth, and international influence. Khenti, who now adopted the name Khenti Husser, Khenti the Mighty, found himself at the heart of an expansive, aggressive empire, a concept Egypt had never fully realized before. His role shifted from passive observer to active, high-level strategist in the royal court, advising the greatest line of pharaohs in Kemet's history. The reign of the female pharaoh, Hatshepsut. Khenti Husser served the early New Kingdom rulers and witnessed a truly astonishing political anomaly, the reign of Hatshepsut, a woman who declared herself pharaoh. Khenti Husser had seen the powerful queens of the Middle Kingdom, but never a woman who adopted the full regalia and titles of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, including the false beard and male attire. He admired her immense political skill. She was the antithesis of the warrior pharaohs who preceded and followed her. Khenti Husser served as an overseer of her massive building projects, recognizing that she sought to restore Ma'at not through conquest, but through economic prosperity and magnificent architecture. His greatest assignment under her was the preparation for the famous expedition to the land of Punt, a place shrouded in mystery and vital for luxury goods. Khenti Husser's ancient knowledge of river routes and coastal geography, dating back to the maritime contacts of the Old Kingdom, was crucial. He meticulously organized the logistics, the number of ships, the necessary provisions of beer and bread, and the specific trade goods the Puntites desired. The success of the mission, documented vividly on the walls of her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, brought back exotic treasures, incense, myrrh trees, which Khenti Husser served as the overseer of the planting of, ebony, gold, and living baboons, which transformed the wealth of Thebes. However, Khenti Husser knew her reign was precarious. The co-regent, Thutmose III, her nephew and stepson, was a young, ambitious general waiting for his chance to claim his birthright. Khenti Husser saw the rising political tension. The Amun priesthood was nervous about a female ruler, and the military elite favored a strong male leader to continue the expansionist wars. He knew the pendulum of power was poised to swing. The architect of empire, Thutmose III. When Thutmose III finally took full control after Hatshepsut's death, the political landscape erupted into war. Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of Egypt by modern historians, was a military genius. Khenti Husser immediately recognized the necessity of his ferocity for the long-term survival of Kemet. Khenti Husser joined the military staff, advising the pharaoh on logistics and strategy. His expertise was invaluable during the campaign that secured the Egyptian empire, the Battle of Megiddo. The coalition of Canaanite princes, led by the Prince of Kadesh, had gathered at the fortress of Megiddo, controlling the vital trade routes. Thutmose III, generals, urged him to take the main, wider road through the valley of Tanakh.
Khenti-Husser, however, recalled a strategy from a long-forgotten skirmish in the First Intermediate Period. He advised the pharaoh to take the dangerous, narrow Aruna Pass. "Pharaoh," Khenti-Husser declared, looking at the topographical maps, "your enemies expect caution. Ma'at is sometimes served by boldness. The narrow pass is the blade of the dagger. It grants the element of surprise and concentrates your strength at the enemy's throat." Thutmose III listened. He led his army single file through the treacherous pass. The surprise was total. The Egyptians quickly routed the coalition, beginning the siege of Megiddo. The victory was a masterpiece of military strategy and secured Egyptian dominance over the Levant for centuries. Khenti-Husser was there when Thutmose III established the complex administrative system that governed the newly conquered territories, appointing local rulers, vassals, who would swear loyalty and send their children to be educated in Egypt, ensuring a continuous supply of loyal, Egyptianized leadership. Khenti-Husser watched as the annual tribute poured into Thebes. Silver rings, copper, lapis lazuli, livestock, and most importantly, the children of foreign princes. The capital became the wealthiest city on earth, a dazzling display of imperial power. He oversaw the final construction of the pylon and the Hall of Annals at the Karnak Temple, where Thutmose III recorded his 17 military campaigns for eternity. He had helped Kemet reach its physical peak, but Khenti-Husser knew that great wealth often breeds arrogance, and arrogance paves the way for decay. The seeds of the next crisis, the religious revolution of Akhenaten, were already being watered by the excessive power and wealth of the priesthood of Amun-Ra, who benefited most from the imperial expansion.
Book 6, The Heretic King, the Amarna Period, circa 1353 to 1336 BCE. The immense wealth and power accumulated during the New Kingdom led directly to the next great crisis, the ascendancy of the priesthood of Amun-Ra. Khenti, now styling himself Khenti-Amun, Khenti of Amun to subtly blend in with the rising religious elite, watched with dread as the high priests of Amun amassed land, tax exemptions, and political influence that rivaled the pharaoh himself. The vision of Amenhotep IV. The new pharaoh, Amenhotep IV, was a sensitive and philosophical young man, seemingly out of step with the warrior tradition of his dynasty. Khenti-Amun recognized that this internal imbalance, a king overshadowed by his own priesthood, had to be corrected to maintain the unbroken thread. He used Amenhotep IV's radical ideas not as madness, but as a necessary political and spiritual surgical cut. Khenti-Amun used his position as a high-ranking scribe and advisor to the royal family to fuel the young king's fervor. He framed the pharaoh's unique vision of the Aten, the visible solar disk, as a return to the pure, universal solar worship of the Old Kingdom's pyramid builders, which Khenti had witnessed firsthand. The difference, however, was profound. Amenhotep IV was advocating for monotheism, the worship of one sole creator god to the exclusion of all others. The revolution began quickly. The name change. Amenhotep IV renounced his birth name, Amun is satisfied, and became Akhenaten, servant of the Aten. The suppression. He ordered the closure of all temples dedicated to Amun and the other traditional gods, confiscating their vast wealth and land for the crown. The new city, the capital, was abandoned for a virgin site in Middle Egypt, Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten, modern Amarna. Khenti-Amun helped design the city,
ensuring its layout reflected the solar principles, with open-air temples designed to face the rising sun. Akhetaten, the city of Aten. Khenti Amen lived in Akhetaten for the entire 17-year reign, witnessing the city's meteoric rise and fall. It was an astonishing cultural experiment. The Amarna art style. Khenti Amen saw the traditional rigid artistic canon discarded for the Amarna style, characterized by intimate, realistic, and often exaggerated portrayals of the royal family. He watched artists capture Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti in moments of genuine affection with their children, a revolutionary change from the impersonal art of the past. The status of Nefertiti. Khenti Amen noted the extraordinary power of Queen Nefertiti. Her depictions show her wearing the Pharaoh's crown, striking down enemies, and even making offerings to the Aten without her husband, a level of authority unprecedented since the female pharaoh Sobek-Neferu of the Middle Kingdom. Despite the artistic and spiritual beauty, Khenti Amen saw the practical disaster. Akhenaten was so consumed by his faith that he neglected the empire that Kemet-Usur had helped forge. The Amarna letters, diplomatic correspondence from vassal kings in the Levant, piled up, begging for aid against the rising power of the Hittites. Akhenaten ignored them, focused only on his theology. The principle of Ma'at was not only social and political, it was external. By neglecting his allies, Akhenaten had tipped the cosmic balance. The Restoration. The revolution was unsustainable. After Akhenaten's death, Khenti Amen moved immediately to assist the forces of reaction. He guided the young, sickly successor, Tutankhaten, living image of the Aten. The real power lay with the conservative military and religious elite, the elderly Vizier I and the general Horemheb. Khenti Amen worked closely with them, drafting the decrees that reversed the heresy. Tutankhaten changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. Khenti Amen oversaw the physical dismantling of Akhetaten, the transfer of the capital back to Thebes, and the joyous reopening of the temples of Amun. It was a dark necessity. The stability of the empire depended on the old gods and the immense institutional power of the Amun cult. He lived just long enough to see the young Tutankhamun die tragically early. Khenti Amen, now in his final New Kingdom incarnation, was present at the boy king's hasty burial in the Valley of the Kings. He ensured the royal artisans included every necessary artifact and spell drawn from his memory of ancient funerary rites to secure the boy's passage to the afterlife, a small act of Ma'at for a king who had suffered so much. The legacy of Amarna was buried, almost perfectly, a traumatic memory purged from the historical record. Khenti Amen then turned his attention to the new strongman, General Horemheb, who would solidify the transition and erase the very names of the Amarna kings from the monuments, ushering in the powerful Ramesside period. The thread was violently restitched, setting the stage for the final, colossal peak of Egyptian power.
Book 7. The Colossus and the Crisis. The Ramesside period, c. 1300 to 1070 BCE. The Amarna heresy had been violently purged, and the unbroken thread was restitched by the military hand of General Horemheb. Khenti, now known as Khenti Ram, embraced the new era of consolidation and martial glory. He saw the necessity of a strong, almost brutal central authority after the religious and political chaos. The 19th dynasty, founded by Horemheb's successor, Ramesses I, was a dynasty of soldiers. Ramesses II, the living god. Khenti Ram's life reached its zenith under Ramesses II, Ramesses the Great. For 66 years, Khenti Ram served the pharaoh, who was, quite literally, treated as a living god. Khenti Ram
was an engineer on the team that created Ramesses II's greatest works, projects intended to last for eternity and eclipse the glories of the pyramid builders. The Ramesseum. Khenti-Ram oversaw the carving and erection of the colossal statue of Ramesses II at his mortuary temple, the Ramesseum, a statue that weighed over 1,000 tons. He noted the sheer hubris and monumental scale, realizing this was the Egyptian civilization using its accumulated knowledge to make its grandest, loudest statement. Abu Simbel. His greatest effort was at Abu Simbel, supervising the meticulous, precise alignment of the 4 colossal statues so that twice a year, on specific dates, the sun would penetrate the sanctuary and illuminate the statues of Ra, Amun, and Ramesses himself, leaving the statue of the darkness god, Ptah, in shadow. Khenti-Ram drew upon his memories of Old Kingdom solar alignments to ensure the accuracy of the incredible engineering feat. His key role, however, was in memorializing the great Battle of Kadesh against the Hittite Empire. Khenti-Ram was not only present at the battle, advising Ramesses on the logistical movements of his 4 divisions, Amun, Ra, Ptah, and Seth, but was instrumental in crafting the multiple detailed accounts of the battle carved on temple walls across Egypt. He helped shape the official narrative, a story of Ramesses II's personal bravery, single-handedly rallying his troops after the Hittite ambush and driving the enemy back. While the battle itself was strategically a draw, Khenti-Ram understood that the story of victory was far more important for maintaining the morale and stability of the empire. This narrative led to the Treaty of Kadesh, the diplomatic peace that followed, which Khenti-Ram transcribed and archived, recognizing it as a necessary, pragmatic end to a long, costly war. The beginning of the end, the Sea Peoples. The magnificence of Ramesses II hid a fatal flaw: the exhaustion of the Egyptian treasury and military from his massive building projects and endless wars. Khenti-Ram saw the first signs of the world changing. After Ramesses II's long reign, Khenti-Ram, now called Khenti-Menes, advised the final great Ramesside pharaoh, Ramesses III. The world was dissolving into the chaos of the late Bronze Age collapse. The new threat was mysterious, relentless, and came from the Sea Peoples. Khenti-Menes observed the unprecedented pressure on Kemet's borders. The Sea Peoples, a coalition of maritime raiders, including the Peleset, likely the ancestors of the Philistines, were destroying great civilizations across the Mediterranean. The Mycenaeans, the Hittites, and the kingdoms of the Levant were falling. Ramesses III's military campaigns against them, which Khenti-Menes helped coordinate, were brutal but effective. Khenti-Menes advised the pharaoh to concentrate forces at the mouth of the Nile Delta, utilizing superior Egyptian naval tactics to funnel the enemy ships into traps. The battle, fought on both land and sea, was recorded by Khenti-Menes on the walls of the pharaoh's mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. The paradox. Ramesses III won the battles, saving Egypt from invasion, but the cost was Pyrrhic. The resources were crippling, and the great trading networks that fueled the new kingdom were permanently shattered. The gold from Nubia and the copper from Sinai still flowed, but the empire was shrinking, its economic vitality drained. Khenti-Menes watched as the final internal decay set in. The immense power of the high priests of Amun returned. The workers in the Valley of the Kings went on strike, the earliest recorded labor strike in history which Khenti-Menes had to mediate. And the final Ramesside pharaohs became shadows of their former selves. The unbroken thread was fraying, not from a single cut, but from a terminal, systemic exhaustion.
Book 8. The Long Twilight, the Late Period, c. 1070 to 332 BCE. The Egyptian Empire, exhausted by the costs of its own glory and the battering of the Sea Peoples, entered a phase of long, slow decline. Khenti, who now simply called himself
Khenti-Ankh, Khenti the living, watched with profound sorrow as the unbroken thread stretched thin, fraying under internal division and successive foreign invasions. Fragmentation and the Libyan dynasty. Following the death of Ramses XI, Khenti-Ankh witnessed the start of the Third Intermediate Period. The central authority dissolved completely. Egypt was split. The pharaohs ruled a weak northern delta from Tanis, while the powerful high priests of Amun effectively ruled Upper Egypt from Thebes. The ultimate humiliation came with the 22nd dynasty, founded by the Libyans. These were not sudden invaders, but descendants of Libyan immigrants and prisoners of war who had gradually gained military control. Khenti-Ankh served in the court of Shoshenq I, a powerful Libyan chief who seized the throne, reuniting the land briefly. Khenti-Ankh noted the irony: a foreigner was needed to impose order on the fragmenting native Egyptian state. He documented Shoshenq I's military campaign into Canaan, including the sack of Jerusalem, which gave Egypt a final, fleeting taste of imperial glory. Despite these moments, the fragmentation continued. Egypt became a chaotic patchwork of smaller, squabbling kingdoms known as the Dodecarchy, 12 rulers by the Greeks. The Nubian Pharaohs, the Black Pharaohs. The next and most unusual period of reunification came from the south. Khenti-Ankh traveled to Thebes and welcomed the Nubian or Kushite invasion. He had always respected the Nubians. They were fierce warriors, but they had absorbed and preserved the core of Egyptian religion and culture during their centuries of vassalage. The Nubian pharaohs of the 25th dynasty saw themselves as the restorers of true Ma'at and the purity of the Old Kingdom. Khenti-Ankh advised Pi, or Pa, the first great Nubian king. He helped Pa document his campaign to conquer Egypt, recorded on the magnificent Victory Stela, a granite monument detailing his pious acts and military genius. The Nubians were zealous builders and restorers, particularly at the great temple complexes of Karnak and Medinet Habu. Khenti-Ankh felt a brief resurgence of hope. The thread, though controlled by non-native hands, was holding the ancient faith. This stability did not last. The Assyrian Empire, expanding from Mesopotamia, saw Egypt as a resource to be plundered. Khenti-Ankh witnessed the devastation wrought by the Assyrian war machine. The Nubian pharaoh, Taharqa, desperately tried to fight them off, but the Nubian armies, despite their bravery, could not withstand the Assyrians' superior iron weaponry and siege tactics. Khenti-Ankh endured the sack of Thebes by the Assyrians in 663 BCE, a humiliation unprecedented since the Hyksos. He watched as the glorious city, which he had helped build and rebuild across 2 millennia, was utterly stripped of its treasures, a memory he filed away with deep sadness. The Assyrians soon retreated, leaving the Saite dynasty, the 26th, to briefly restore Egyptian independence. Khenti-Ankh served this final native dynasty, which tried desperately to recapture the art and architectural styles of the glorious Old Kingdom, a nostalgic effort to cling to a lost past. But the world order had shifted. The new regional superpower was the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Khenti-Ankh was present when the Persian king Cambyses II invaded in 525 BCE, conquering Egypt and establishing the 27th dynasty. Kemet was reduced to a mere province, a satrap, its pharaoh replaced by a Persian viceroy. Khenti-Ankh watched the Persians introduce a new bureaucratic layer, And while they initially respected the Egyptian gods, the occupation was an undeniable end to true independence. He knew that the thread could not sustain this pressure forever. He settled into the long, dark wait, observing the Persian occupation until the arrival of the next great world shaker, Alexander the Great, a moment that would end the late period and redefine Khenti's ancient world entirely.
Book 9, The Hellenic Dawn, the Ptolemaic period, circa 332 to 30 BCE. The long night of the late period ended with a flash of Macedonian steel. Khenti, who now adopted the Greek name Khentis to navigate the changing world, felt a sense of awe mixed with apprehension as Alexander the Great entered Egypt. The arrival of Alexander. In 332 BCE, Alexander, having decisively defeated the Persians, marched into Egypt. Khenti, now an aged sage and administrator, observed the scene. Unlike the brutal Assyrians or the pragmatic Persians, Alexander understood the power of religious and cultural legitimacy. Alexander was welcomed not as a conqueror, but as a liberator from the hated Persian rule. Khentis was present in Memphis when Alexander made the pilgrimage to the sacred Apis bull and was crowned pharaoh in a traditional Egyptian ceremony. This calculated respect for Ma'at won the immediate loyalty of the Egyptian priesthood and populace, a loyalty Khentis found surprising but effective. Khentis was among the small group of advisors Alexander consulted during the founding of Alexandria, the new capital city at the mouth of the western Nile Delta. He contributed his ancient knowledge of coastal topography and delta flow dynamics, ensuring the city was located optimally for both defense and deep-water harbor access. He watched the grand vision unfold, a Hellenistic metropolis that would become the unrivaled center of learning and trade for the next 1,000 years. The most profound moment came when Alexander journeyed to the remote oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis. Khentis traveled with the entourage. When Alexander emerged, he was declared by the oracle to be the son of Amun, a living god. Khentis knew this was the ultimate confirmation of Egyptian kingship, echoing the divine birthrights of the New Kingdom pharaohs. Khentis, the keeper of the unbroken thread, felt a powerful surge from the obsidian stone. The covenant was renewed, albeit through a Macedonian. The Empire of the Ptolemies. After Alexander's death, his empire shattered. Egypt fell to his most capable general, Ptolemy Soter, who established the Ptolemaic dynasty. Khentis settled permanently in Alexandria, becoming a scholar and librarian in the famed Great Library. This was an unparalleled intellectual environment. Khentis taught mathematics and engineering, utilizing his ancient knowledge that often astounded his Greek colleagues. He saw Egyptian geometry and astronomy formalized by giants like Euclid, whom he knew personally, and the brilliance of Archimedes, who conducted research there. Khentis was the silent bridge between the deep knowledge of Kemet and the analytical philosophy of Greece. The Ptolemies were masters of cultural synthesis. They built Egyptian-style temples, like the stunning one at Edfu, honored the ancient gods, and even created a new hybrid god, Serapis, blending the Greek Zeus and the Egyptian Osiris/Apis. Yet they ruled as Greek monarchs, maintaining a strict social and linguistic hierarchy that relegated native Egyptians to a lower status. Khentis recorded the constant, simmering tension between the ruling Hellenistic elite and the oppressed native populace. The shadow of Rome and Cleopatra. As the centuries passed, the brilliance of Alexandria faded, replaced by internal strife and the terrifying rise of a new power, Rome. Khentis watched the Ptolemies become client kings, entirely dependent on Rome's political and military muscle. His final mission as the keeper came in the court of Cleopatra VII, Philopator, the last Ptolemaic ruler. Khentis was her history tutor and confidant. He admired her immensely.
She was the first Ptolemy to bother learning the Egyptian language, and she consciously styled herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis to win native loyalty. She was a master strategist, using personal charm and political brilliance to secure alliances with the most powerful Romans, first Julius Caesar and then Mark Antony. In 30 BCE, as the victorious forces of Octavian, later Caesar Augustus, closed in after the disastrous naval defeat at Actium, Kentis stood with Cleopatra in her tomb. He recognized the finality of the moment. The thread had held, but the land was exhausted, its institutions brittle. The ancient world Kenti had protected for millennia was ending, replaced by the Roman Empire. He gave her the obsidian shard, allowing her to grasp the final, true history of her ancestors before she took the asp. As the Romans burst in, Kentis allowed the stone's eternal power to temporarily overwhelm him, concealing his true age as he vanished into the smoke and chaos. The Pharaonic era was over, but Kenti, the man who remembered Khufu, was not. The thread was now completely invisible, woven deep into the fabric of the Roman province of Egypt.
Book X, The Eternal Observer. Roman, Islamic, and Modern Eras, 30 BCE to present. The fall of Cleopatra was not an ending, but a transformation. Kentis, the keeper, now saw his land absorbed into the vast, pragmatic machinery of the Roman Empire. He adopted the Latin name Crestus, a common Greek name meaning useful or good, and continued his silent duty. Roman Egypt, the breadbasket, 30 BCE to 641 CE. Under Roman rule, Egypt became the empire's vital breadbasket, providing the grain that fed the populace of Rome. Crestus worked as an inspector for the grain fleets sailing from Alexandria, a tedious but crucial role that kept him close to the economic pulse of the land. He watched as the Romans, unlike the Ptolemies, showed almost no interest in Egyptian culture, focusing solely on taxation and security. They dismantled the Greek administration and imposed harsh Roman laws, leading to frequent, often brutally suppressed native Egyptian revolts. Crestus witnessed the decline of the great temples he had helped build. The Roman emperors allowed them to fall into disrepair or repurposed them. He lived through the rise of a new religion, Christianity. He saw the fervor of the early Christian converts, many of them native Egyptians, who violently rejected the ancient gods. The temples of Amun, Isis, and Ptah, which he had served for 3 millennia, were desecrated, vandalized, and converted into Coptic churches. He felt the pain of this spiritual break, realizing that the thread, the ancient religious covenant, was finally irrevocably broken. His duty shifted, not to preserve the religion, but to preserve the memory of it. He lived through the division of the Roman Empire and the eventual collapse of the western half. He endured the centuries of Byzantine rule, witnessing the slow decay of Alexandria's splendor until the land was weary and ready for the next great change. Islamic Egypt, the crossroads of the world, 641 CE to 1798 CE. In 641 CE, the Islamic Caliphate swept across Egypt. Crestus, now calling himself Hidr, a figure in Islamic tradition associated with eternal life and hidden knowledge, observed the conquest. It was quick, clean, and irreversible. He watched as the city of Fustat, later Cairo, was founded, replacing Alexandria as the administrative and cultural heart. Hidr found a new role as a scholar and chronicler. He utilized the Arabic language, becoming a master of Islamic astronomy and cartography. He was instrumental in preserving many of the Hellenistic texts from Alexandria and ensuring they were translated into Arabic,
contributing to the great intellectual flowering of the Islamic Golden Age. Khidr lived through the Fatimid, Ayyubid, serving under Saladin, whom he admired for his piety and military skill, and Mamluk dynasties. He witnessed the construction of Cairo's magnificent mosques and citadels, seeing architecture and engineering flourish once more, a familiar pattern of cultural renewal. Yet the memory of the pharaohs was now completely obscured, existing only in strange, often distorted local myths, and the towering, baffling presence of the pyramids. Khidr became one of the few living souls who could look at the Great Pyramid and know in his heart the names of the men who built it. The modern thread, Napoleon and today, 1798 CE to present. The modern era began abruptly in 1798 with the arrival of Napoleon Bonaparte and his French expedition. Khidr saw this not as a mere invasion, but as a deliberate act of historical rediscovery. He worked as a translator for the French scholars, who were mapping, drawing, and documenting every temple and monument. He was present during the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, a moment he knew would re-tie the thread to the present day. When Jean-François Champollion finally decoded the hieroglyphs in 1822, Khidr wept. The voices of the pharaohs, which he alone had carried for millennia, could now speak again. The memory was saved. Khenti now exists as Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes, a renowned, quietly eccentric, and universally respected professor of Egyptology at a major American university. He moves between Cairo and the United States, advising international archaeological digs, translating obscure texts that no one else can read, and quietly ensuring the protection of ancient sites. He is still bound to the Stone of Perpetuity, now a small, unassuming obsidian pendant he wears beneath his shirt. He walks the halls of the Metropolitan Museum and the Egyptian Museum, looking at the objects he saw crafted, dedicated, and buried. His duty is no longer to the pharaohs, but to knowledge itself. He is the living archive, the unbroken consciousness witnessing the entire human journey from the banks of the ancient Nile to the digital age. He waits, still, for the next great rise, ready to whisper the wisdom of Kemet when the modern world needs its eternal balance, its Ma'at.
The Chronicle of Khenti, summary of the unbroken thread. The story of Khenti is the chronicle of Egyptian civilization itself, a man bound by the obsidian stone to maintain the integrity of Kemet's knowledge and essence, the unbroken thread. Over more than 3 millennia, he took on many identities and roles, serving as a silent guardian of Ma'at, cosmic order. Here is a summary of Khenti's life, his names, and his main duty during each major era. 1. The Architects of Stone, Old Kingdom, c. 2600 BCE. Name: Khenti. Role: stone dresser and laborer on the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Duty: he received the curse/gift of immortality from the Stone of Perpetuity, an obsidian fragment, binding him to Kemet. His initial duty was simply to witness and survive the founding of the great pharaonic state. 2. The Divided Land, First Intermediate Period, c. 2181 BCE. Name: Khenti Nefer, Khenti the Beautiful. Role: master scribe and court diplomat for a Theban nomarch. Duty: to prevent the total collapse of the Egyptian state. He used lost historical knowledge as a diplomatic weapon to legitimize the Intef dynasty, Theban rulers, initiating the reunification that led to the Middle Kingdom. 3. The Golden Age of Refinement, Middle Kingdom, c. 2040-1782 BCE. Name: Khenti Seba, Khenti the Wise. Role: royal architect and administrator, especially in the Fayum region.
Duty: to restore trust and stability after the Civil War. He designed concealed tombs like the Labyrinth and ensured the accurate transcription of the coffin texts, overseeing the democratization of the afterlife. 4. The Foreign Yoke, Second Intermediate Period, c. 1782-1570 BCE. Name: Khenti Nehet, Khenti the Strong. Role: clerk in the Hyksos administration, later military strategist for the Theban rebels. Duty: to facilitate the liberation of Egypt. He stole and provided military intelligence, chariot and composite bow schematics to the Theban royal family, Seqenenre-Ta and Ahmose I, enabling the foundation of the New Kingdom Empire. 5. The Zenith of Empire, New Kingdom, Part 1, c. 1570-1400 BCE. Name: Khenti User, Khenti the Mighty. Role: overseer of major state projects and logistics advisor. Duty: to ensure Kemet's external power. He managed the Punt expedition for Hatshepsut and advised Thutmose III on the crucial Aruna Pass strategy that secured the victory at Megiddo and established the empire. 6. The Heretic King, the Amarna period, c. 1353-1336 BCE. Name: Khenti Amen, Khenti Avaman, or the Hidden. Role: high-ranking scribe and philosophical advisor to Akhenaten, and later Vizier I. Duty: to manage the religious schism. He initially fueled the Aten revolution to break the power of the Amun priesthood, but later assisted in the restoration of Amun under Tutankhamun and Horemheb to prevent the empire's total dissolution. 7. The Colossus and the Crisis, Ramessidid period, c. 1300-1070 BCE. Name: Khenti Menes, Khenti the Enduring. Role: royal engineer and battlefield chronicler. Duty: to immortalize the final great era. He worked on the colossal projects of Ramses II, Abu Simbel, and Ramses III, ensuring the official victory narrative of the Battle of Kadesh and coordinating the defense against the Sea Peoples. 8. The Long Twilight, Late Period, c. 1070-332 BCE. Name: Khenti Ankh, Khenti the Living. Role: temple official and chronicler serving foreign dynasties. Duty: to preserve the faith and institutions through foreign occupations. He served the Nubian pharaohs who restored piety and endured the invasions of the Assyrians and Persians, becoming a keeper of the lost traditions. 9. The Hellenic Dawn, Ptolemaic period, c. 332-30 BCE. Name: Kentis. Role: scholar, librarian, and tutor in the Great Library of Alexandria. Duty: to act as the intellectual bridge between Kemet and the Hellenic world. He advised Alexander the Great, taught mathematics to scholars like Euclid, and served as the personal history confidant to Cleopatra VII, witnessing the final end of the Pharaonic Age. 10. The Eternal Observer, Roman to Modern Eras, 30 BCE present. Names: Crestus, Roman Christian. Hydra, Islamic. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes, Modern. Role: Roman grain inspector, Islamic scholar/cartographer, and modern Egyptology professor. Duty: to preserve the memory of Kemet. He witnessed the rise of Christianity and Islam, contributed to the Islamic Golden Age, and guided the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, ultimately becoming the living archive, a silent mentor ensuring the ancient knowledge informs the modern world.
The Voice of the Past. Rosetta, 1822. The air in the Paris apartment was thick with the scent of old paper, lamp oil, and the faint, persistent smell of stone dust. Outside, the early autumn of 1822 was cool, but inside, the intensity of the work generated its own heat. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes,
Kidder, or Kenti, now in the guise of a quiet, elderly scholar, sat across a large oak table from Jean-François Champollion. For weeks, Kenti had watched the Frenchman work, his mind a quiet library holding the 3 millennia of linguistic change that Champollion was attempting to span. The Rosetta Stone, Getty Images, or rather a meticulous copy of it, lay before them. Kenti had seen the original taken from Egypt, a granodorite stele inscribed with the same decree in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and ancient Greek. Kenti remembered the day the decree was issued, 196 BCE, in the court of Ptolemy V. He had stood near the temple gate, an insignificant Egyptian priest then, noting the decree's careful composition, a pragmatic blend of Greek governance and pharaonic tradition. He knew every stroke, every symbol, every word. Yet, for over 1,000 years, that knowledge had been useless to the world. Champollion, his face pale with exhaustion and intellectual fervor, traced a cartouche on the copy. He had made a crucial breakthrough, identifying the Greek name Ptolemaios and correlating it with the hieroglyphic symbols. "Look, Kidder," Champollion whispered, tapping the symbols that read PTWLMYS. "I have the sounds. I know the sounds of the late period. The key is in the late Greek names." Kenti Kidder watched, his eyes that had seen the very first hieroglyphs scratched onto clay by the First Dynasty scribes, moistening almost imperceptibly. The sound of Ptah in the Pharaoh's name, the sound of the Ka, the life force, in the very structure of the words. It was all there. Champollion moved swiftly to another cartouche, the one for the name Cleopatra. He confirmed his phonetic reading. Then he pointed to a cluster of symbols far older, far more complex than the names. A depiction of a sedge plant and a bee, common emblems of kingship. Champollion leaned back, breathing heavily. If the symbols are phonetic for foreign names, they must also be phonetic, or at least ideographic, for the original Egyptian words. If PTWLMYS is Ptolemy, then this symbol, he pointed to a symbol of a simple owl, it must be the letter M. Kenti stiffened. The owl. He remembered the owl, M, being used as a biliteral sign for to see in the Middle Kingdom. He remembered the arguments in the scribal schools over its phonetic value. "Yes," Kenti Kidder whispered, his voice trembling slightly, not with age, but with the immense weight of 3,000 years of silence breaking. "Yes, mon ami, it is. The voice is clear now." Champollion looked up, astonished by the ancient authority in Kidder's quiet tone. "The language," Kenti Kidder continued, closing his eyes, "it is not merely pictorial as they believed. It is phonetic, ideographic, and determinative. It is a river of sound and image. You have reconnected the river, Jean-François." For Kenti, the sound of the word Rosetta would forever be synonymous with the sound of the hieroglyphic language finally speaking again, a sound he had carried, cherished, and guarded in the deepest chambers of his immortal memory. His duty to the unbroken thread had never been more profoundly fulfilled. The final great secret of Kemet was now shared with the world. Would you like to delve deeper into the fascinating Egyptian concept of Ma'at and its central importance to Kenti's life and duty?
Book 11, The Modern Ma'at. Conclusion, Present Day. After traversing the immense span of Egyptian civilization, Kenti now operates in his final incarnation. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes, a renowned, quietly eccentric professor of Egyptology at a major American university. His name isn't inscribed in any Pharaoh's cartouche, but rather adorns academic journals and international conference speaker lists. Kenti Rhodes understands that to protect the unbroken thread now requires neither power nor colossal architecture, but integrity and historical truth. the living archive. Dr. Rhodes' primary duty today is the protection and distribution of knowledge. The Ma'at, cosmic order, he once upheld for the Pharaohs now translates to the preservation of unbroken historical truth. He knows a single falsehood or misinterpretation can warp millennia of history. Refuting falsehoods. He rarely participates in archaeological digs, but every excavation report passes under his scrutiny. Whenever a team makes sensational, often unfounded claims, such as discovering lost pharaohs' secret treasures, Dr. Rhodes publishes a measured, meticulously researched academic article that immediately debunks the sensationalism. His multi-millennial memory serves as the ultimate reference point. The digital thread. He no longer physically guards ancient scrolls. Instead, he oversees digital archiving. He ensures that complex, accurate 3D scans are created of every temple, tomb, and inscription, guaranteeing that neither future climate change nor political instability can ever erase the historical record. The stone's silence. Kenty Rhodes frequently touches the obsidian stone of perpetuity, now a simple, unremarkable pendant hidden beneath his shirt. In this age, he doesn't mourn the death of pharaohs. Instead, he observes the rapid pace of millions of fleeting lives and the explosive rise of technology. The challenge of his final era is philosophical. Not to be alone, not to be forgotten, but to remain relevant outside the bounds of time itself. He couldn't restore the knowledge lost when the Library of Alexandria burned. But now, information spreads quickly and is lost just as fast. Kenty Rhodes is the timeless editor, subtly influencing the course of human history by introducing knowledge in such a way that it remains protected for future generations. He visits museums worldwide, often pausing before the glass cases housing a simple limestone block from Khufu's pyramid. Kenty Rhodes smiles faintly at the stone because he recognizes his own handiwork. He knows his journey isn't over because humanity's quest for knowledge has not ended. He waits for the next great era when humanity launches itself into space or forms some new kind of society. Kenty, the archive, will be there. This concludes the final chapter of the Chronicle. Would you like to request a new modern-era scene continuing Dr. Rhodes' life, or would you prefer a deep dive into one of the central themes of the story, such as the concept of Ma'at? Ma'at, the guiding principle of Kenty's existence. The concept of Ma'at, often pronounced Mahat, is the single most important, enduring, and complex idea in ancient Egyptian civilization. It is the core philosophy that drove every action of the pharaohs and, crucially, defined Kenty's eternal duty as the keeper of the unbroken thread. Ma'at is far more than a simple word. It is a fundamental, multifaceted principle of cosmic and social order. 1. Ma'at as cosmic order, the divine. Definition: Ma'at represents the ideal state of balance, harmony, truth, justice, morality, and order in the universe. It is the opposite of Isfet, chaos, injustice, and disorder. The world's beginning. According to Egyptian mythology, when the creator god Ra first formed the world from the chaotic primal waters of Nun, he established Ma'at. The world exists only as long as Ma'at is maintained. Kenty's duty. Kenty's ultimate mission was to prevent Isfet from permanently overwhelming Ma'at in Kemet. When the Nile failed, Book 2, when the Hyksos invaded, Book 4, or when the pharaoh neglected the empire, Book 6, Kenty saw these not just as political disasters, but as manifestations of Isfet that he had to correct to restore cosmic balance. 2. Ma'at as social and political justice, the pharaoh. The pharaoh's role. The pharaoh was not merely a king, he was the chief agent of Ma'at on earth. His primary purpose was to constantly re-establish and uphold Ma'at through just governance, maintaining border security, and ensuring the temples were properly maintained for the gods. Practical Ma'at. This meant ensuring the Nile inundation. Though symbolic, the pharaoh was held responsible for it. Maintaining fair taxation and distribution of food. Building magnificent temples and tombs to honor the gods and secure the afterlife. Khenti's execution. Khenti constantly advised rulers to choose actions that maximize long-term stability over short-term gain. For instance, guiding the Theban nomarchs, Book 2, or restoring the cult of Amun, Book 6, were necessary acts of political ma'at, even if brutal, to re-establish centralized order. 3. Ma'at in the afterlife, the personal. The final test. Every Egyptian, from the pharaoh to the peasant, was ultimately judged by Ma'at in the afterlife. The weighing of the heart. In the Hall of Two Truths, the deceased's heart was literally weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was heavier, meaning it was full of sin or injustice, it was devoured by the goddess Amit. If it balanced, the person achieved eternal life. Khenti's perspective. As the only truly immortal Egyptian, Khenti knew his own eternal existence was bound to the principle. He never committed an act purely for personal gain, always acting in service of the greater historical necessity to keep the Egyptian memory and civilization alive. In essence, Ma'at was the blueprint for Egyptian civilization, and Khenti was the timeless construction foreman, ensuring the blueprint was followed, repaired, and never discarded, no matter the political storm.
Book 12. The Digital Isfet. Modern Era, Present Day. The air in the British Museum's Department of Egypt and Sudan felt cool and sterile, a stark contrast to the sun-baked mud brick Khenti remembered. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes sat in a private reading room, not examining papyri, but staring at a tablet, a digital screen displaying a complex mathematical model. The threat was subtle, insidious, and entirely modern: algorithmic Isfet. A newly popular documentary produced by a wealthy American tech mogul was claiming that the pyramids of Giza were not, in fact, built by the Egyptians, but were constructed entirely by a technologically advanced, prehistoric global civilization. The theory, though historically baseless, was gaining massive traction online, amplified by algorithms that favored sensationalism over fact. Khenti recognized the pattern: a slow, viral destruction of Ma'at. His academic colleagues were dismissive, calling it fringe, but Khenti Rhodes knew the danger. He had seen empires fall, and he knew that the soul of a civilization dies not when its monuments crumble, but when its true narrative is permanently lost. The glitch in the Ma'at. Dr. Rhodes' concern focused on a single artifact: the Menkaure triad statues, magnificent gray-whack figures from the 4th dynasty. The documentary claimed that the perfect symmetry and hardness of the stone proved impossible for copper tools, therefore requiring advanced laser cutting technology. Khenti had been a master stone dresser during the 4th dynasty, Book 1. He knew the truth was much simpler and more difficult: labor, time, and water. He opened a file containing a digitized copy of his own 4th dynasty log, a tiny, meticulously drawn papyrus fragment he had anonymously donated to a museum decades ago. It detailed the use of dolomite pounders and sand slurry, a highly effective abrasive, against the granite core of Menkaure's complex. The math was precise. A team of 6 men could cut 1.5 centimeters of granite per day using that method. Rhodes's challenge was to communicate the elegance of human effort against the sensational lie of alien technology. "The model is wrong, Professor," said Dr. Anya Sharma, his young, brilliant research assistant. She pointed to the screen. "Their simulation shows a 99% probability of tool failure if they used the tools we think they had." Rhodes leaned in, his ancient eyes focusing on the code. "They assume a constant rate of friction. They assume modern work fatigue. They forget the motivation. They forget the ka." He gently touched the screen. "They forget the water. The constant application of Nile water, not for drinking, but to carry away the dust and cool the cutting edge. They forget the songs that kept the rhythmic pounding precise." Restoring the digital thread. Kenty Rhodes spent the next 3 days creating an entirely new mathematical model. He factored in variables no modern scientist would consider: rhythmic pounding efficiency, the effect of music and chanting, the superiority of locally sourced Nile silt abrasives, and the absence of profit motive, the honor of building for the divine pharaoh. He submitted the resulting paper to the world's leading science journal, not as a rebuttal of a conspiracy theory, but as "The Physics of Pharaonic Labor, Water, Rhythm, and the Achievement of Ma'at." The paper was irrefutable. It utilized fluid dynamics, material science, and anthropology to show that the construction was not only possible, but the most efficient use of available materials and labor. A perfect example of Ma'at in engineering. The paper was picked up globally. The sensational documentary slowly faded from prominence. The voice of truth, amplified by Kenty Rhodes's eternal perspective, had restored order. He stood up, stretching his tired yet perpetually enduring body. He glanced at the copy of the Rosetta Stone in the adjacent gallery. The hieroglyphs were silent, but Kenty heard them clearly. The battle for Ma'at was no longer fought with chariots and arrows, but with facts and algorithms. And Kenty, the man who remembered the rhythm of the stone pounders, was perfectly equipped for the fight. Cleopatra VII, Philopater. Cleopatra VII, 69 BCE to 30 BCE, was the final active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt and one of the most brilliant, complex, and politically astute figures Kenty ever encountered. Kenty, as Kentis, saw her not merely as a Hellenistic queen, but as a deliberate and ambitious restorer of pharaonic power. 1. Intellect and language, the scholar queen. Kenty often noted that Cleopatra's greatest weapon was her intellect, not her beauty. Linguist. Unlike her Ptolemaic predecessors, who only spoke Greek, Kenty confirmed she was the first in her dynasty to fluently master the Egyptian language itself. She reportedly spoke 8 languages, including Aramaic, Hebrew, Median, and Latin, allowing her to negotiate directly with foreign envoys and connect personally with the native Egyptian populace. Kenty personally tutored her in ancient Egyptian history, law, and religious protocols, ensuring her actions were aligned with traditional Ma'at. Education. Kenty was impressed by her profound understanding of mathematics, philosophy, and diplomacy, all nurtured in the intellectual center at Alexandria. 2. Political strategy and identity, the restorer of Ma'at. Cleopatra's ruling strategy was a deliberate fusion of Greek power and Egyptian legitimacy, a fact Kenty strongly admired. Pharaonic identity. She deliberately cast herself as the reincarnation of the Egyptian goddess Isis, associating herself with fertility, magic, and royal power. This move secured the loyalty of the powerful native Egyptian priesthood and the populace, something her family had struggled with for centuries. Economic acumen. She stabilized the collapsing Ptolemaic economy, restoring coinage and streamlining trade, proving she possessed the necessary administrative skills to uphold Ma'at, ensuring the prosperity of the land. Global view. Kenty observed that she understood the shift in the global balance of power. She knew Rome was the ultimate authority, and her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were calculated attempts to preserve Egypt's independence by becoming Rome's most essential and powerful partner rather than its vassal.
3. The tragedy of her reign, Isfet's final triumph. For Khenti, Cleopatra's reign was a brilliant but ultimately doomed final flare of Egyptian greatness. The conflict. Khenti knew her vision, a great independent Egyptian empire, was impossible in an era dominated by Rome's expansionist republic. Her love affairs with the Roman generals were not just personal, they were treaties of state, designed to bear fruit, literally, in her children, who were meant to rule a merged kingdom. The end. Khenti was present at her final moments, witnessing her decision to take her own life, rather than suffer the ultimate humiliation of being paraded as a prisoner in Rome by Octavian. Khenti's final reassurance to her, Book 9, that her heart would be true when weighed against the feather of Ma'at, acknowledged that, despite her Greek heritage, her intent was truly to serve the welfare of Kemet. Cleopatra VII was the perfect synthesis of Alexandrian intellect and ancient Egyptian ambition, a leader Khenti knew would be remembered forever, even as the Pharaonic age ended with her.
The Weapons of Liberation, Mastering Hyksos Technology. As detailed in Book 4, the Hyksos, or rulers of foreign lands, maintained their dominance over Egypt for over a century due to a technological gap. Khenti, disguised as Khenti Nehet, played a critical role in closing this gap by observing and reverse engineering the invaders' strengths, ensuring the Egyptian army could fight Isfet, chaos, with its own tools. 1. The horse-drawn chariot. The single most terrifying innovation the Hyksos possessed was the lightweight, two-wheeled, horse-drawn chariot. The problem: Egyptians had traditionally fought on foot, relying on massed infantry. The chariot provided unparalleled speed and mobility, allowing the Hyksos to quickly flank and harass Egyptian lines with archers, then retreat before retaliation. The early attempt at reproducing chariots resulted in heavy, clumsy platforms. Khenti's contribution. Khenti Nehet used his knowledge of woodworking and engineering derived from the complex boat-building techniques of the Old and Middle Kingdoms to refine the design. Lightweight frame. He emphasized the use of steam-bent wood and lightweight materials like leather and parchment wrapping to reduce weight, dramatically increasing speed and maneuverability. Axle placement. He advised placing the axle at the rear of the platform, giving the archer more leverage for bracing and shooting, a superior design the Egyptians adopted. Breeding. Crucially, he advised the Thebans on the selective breeding and training of horses specifically for warfare, which required specific knowledge of their care and equipment, knowledge entirely foreign to Egypt. 2. The composite bow. The Hyksos bow provided a massive advantage in range and kinetic energy over the simple self-bows used by the native Egyptians. The problem: the traditional Egyptian bow was a single piece of wood, limited by the flexibility of local timber. The Hyksos bow was capable of piercing armor from a distance, making Egyptian infantry highly vulnerable. Khenti's contribution. The composite bow was constructed from layers of different materials: wood, usually birch or maple, horn, and sinew, animal tendons, glued together with animal hide glue. Materials research. Khenti Nehet's vast memory contained records of complex adhesives and metallurgy from previous dynasties. He helped the Theban workshops source the necessary materials. Horn and sinew were readily available, but the specific glue formulas were a closely guarded secret, and taught them the complex, time-consuming process of lamination under pressure. Recurve design. He provided detailed schematics for the recurve shape of the bow, which stores and releases energy much more efficiently than a straight bow, exponentially increasing the arrow's velocity. 3. Advanced bronze weaponry. The Egyptians were largely still using copper weapons, while the Hyksos possessed true bronze weapons, offering superior strength and edge retention. The problem: copper is too soft for effective warfare. The Hyksos used a bronze alloy that was much harder, leading to weapons that rarely broke and maintained a sharper edge. Khenti's contribution. Khenti Nehet helped standardize the alloying process.
By ensuring the correct proportions of copper and tin were used, and by applying techniques derived from high-heat metalwork seen in temple offerings and statues, knowledge he retained from the Old Kingdom, he significantly improved the quality and reliability of Egyptian swords, daggers, and the new khopesh, sickle sword, which the Egyptians quickly adopted from Canaanite influence, making the new Egyptian army an armored, rapid, and deadly force. By internalizing and perfecting these technologies, the Egyptians under Ahmose I not only expelled the invaders, but transformed their military into the powerful engine that drove the New Kingdom Empire. Khenti's silent action ensured that the Egyptian military itself evolved, restoring Ma'at through adaptation and innovation. Book 13, The Cairo Negotiation, The Custodian's Dilemma. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes, Khenti, stood in the humid heat of Cairo, far from the sterile halls of academia. The issue he faced was one of restitution, a painful, necessary act of modern Ma'at, the return of significant cultural artifacts to their homeland. The particular artifact in question was the Sema Tawi stela, a piece Khenti had helped create during the Middle Kingdom, symbolizing the binding of Upper and Lower Egypt. A wealthy European museum had quietly acquired it decades ago under questionable circumstances. Now the Egyptian government was demanding its return. The two sides of the thread. Khenti's internal conflict was profound. His duty to the unbroken thread required him to weigh the historical balance. The case for return, Ma'at. The stela was carved for Kemet. Its spiritual and symbolic power was maximized on the soil it was meant to sanctify. The return would uphold the national dignity and cultural heritage of modern Egypt, a triumph of justice. The case for retention, the archive. Khenti knew that the stela, while in Europe, had been subject to impeccable preservation, groundbreaking research, and easy global access. Would its return to a potentially under-resourced local museum risk its long-term physical security or accessibility? He acted not as a historian, but as a neutral, timeless custodian of the object's survival. Khenti Rhodes sat down with the museum's European director and the head of the Egyptian Antiquities Ministry. He was introduced as the world's foremost expert on Middle Kingdom ceremonial pieces. The solution of Khenti Rhodes. The negotiations were deadlocked. The museum argued ownership. The ministry argued moral right. Khenti let them argue for an hour, absorbing the emotional currents of both sides, the modern echo of the ancient struggle between centralized power and regional identity. Finally, Khenti spoke, his voice calm, cutting through the tension with the quiet authority of someone who had simply seen it all. The stela was created to symbolize unity, not division, Khenti Rhodes stated, addressing both parties. It cannot serve its purpose if it is permanently sequestered in one place or if its safety is compromised. He proposed a solution derived from a principle of shared sovereignty he had learned under the pragmatic Ptolemies, Book 9. Physical return. The Sema Tawi stela would be physically returned to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, acknowledging the moral right of the nation. Digital custodianship. The European Museum, in exchange for relinquishing the object, would be granted perpetual rights to the highest resolution 3D digital scans and data. They would become the primary international digital custodians of the object, responsible for global digital distribution and research access. Restoration Fund. The European Museum would establish a substantial endowment for the long-term environmental stabilization of the stela in Cairo, ensuring its physical preservation matched global standards. This proposal upheld Ma'at. It restored the object to its rightful place and guaranteed its survival and accessibility in the global archive. Both sides, realizing they had been presented with a win-win scenario that respected both justice and knowledge, reluctantly agreed. As Khenti Rhodes left the negotiations, he felt the familiar cool thrum of the obsidian stone. The modern world presented complex challenges, but the core principle remained. The unbroken thread survives best when the balance between preservation and access is upheld.
Book 14, The Price of Perpetuity, The Sorrow of Ayaret.
Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes, Kenti, was alone in his apartment overlooking the Nile in Cairo. The modern sounds of the city, the distant, chaotic symphony of traffic, were a thin veil over the profound silence of his memory. He pulled the obsidian pendant from beneath his shirt and ran his thumb over the cool, dark surface. He wasn't touching stone, he was touching the past. Etched almost invisibly into the underside of the fragment was the name Ayeret. The scribe and the sage, circa 1900 BCE. He remembered Ayeret perfectly. She was a junior royal scribe in the court of Senusret III during the strong, confident Middle Kingdom. While Kenti Seba was preoccupied with the vast engineering of the Fayum labyrinth, Ayeret brought light and questioning intelligence to his meticulous work. She was fascinated by the Seba wisdom Kenti possessed, unaware it was the accumulated knowledge of 1,000 years. She loved the precise flowing beauty of the hieroglyphs, particularly the cursive hieratic script used for administrative documents. They spent late nights in the scriptorium, Kenti reciting the lost pyramid texts and Ayeret arguing the necessity of the modern coffin texts for the common people. Seba, she had once said, using his familiar title, "You speak of Hufu's time as if the sun still rises over his work, yet you build tombs of mud brick now. Is this not a decay of the soul?" Kenti Seba smiled then, knowing she was sharp but could not grasp the necessity of adaptive ma'at. "We build for survival, Ayeret. The soul of Kemet is in the people, not only the stone. We hide our treasures now so that we may live to build grandly later." She was fleeting, he was endless. It was an imbalance that created both the greatest warmth and the deepest pain. The fever and the failure. The loss was agonizing because Kenti had the knowledge to save her, but lacked the power. When the localized fever swept through the court, a virulent form of schistosomiasis aggravated by the Nile's waters, Ayeret fell quickly. Kenti Seba desperately employed every remedy his memories held. Poultices of moldy bread, early antibiotics, carefully boiled water, and precise herbal decoctions. His medical knowledge surpassed any physician of the time, yet the illness was too rapid, the systemic failure too overwhelming. He sat by her bedside, holding her hand, feeling the fragile heat ebb away. He could repair himself instantly from any wound, but the stone offered him no power to share life. His immortality was a solitary prison. "You speak of eternity, Seba," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tell me of the western horizon. Is it just?" Kenti could only answer with truth, drawn from the deepest conviction of his long life. "It is balanced, Ayeret. If you served truth, the feather will weigh true." When she passed, Kenti Seba did not weep. He felt the cold, familiar psychic recoil that accompanied the death of every soul he loved, the violent severing of a connection he could never truly initiate, knowing it was doomed to end. He was immune to death, but not to grief. In the ensuing centuries, every joy, every triumph, the reunification under Mentuhotep II, the glory of Ramesses II, the cunning of Cleopatra, would always be tempered by the knowledge that Ayeret and all the others missed it. The silence of the centuries was filled with the memory of the voices he could no longer hear. Book 15, The Final Confidant, The Revelation. Dr. Kenneth A. Rhodes knew that the age of absolute secrecy was drawing to a close. The digital world was too porous, his own unique historical knowledge too singular to remain unexplained forever. If he were to be struck down by a stray bus tomorrow, the thread would be endangered by the chaos of his unsolved scholarly mysteries. He chose Dr. Anya Sharma,
his brilliant, sharp-witted research assistant introduced in Book 12, who possessed both an open mind and a fierce devotion to historical truth. The unbreakable fact. The setting was Kenty's private study in his university apartment, filled with books, maps, and the faint, sweet scent of ancient cedarwood Kenty always burned. On the table, he placed 2 items: a high-resolution 3D scan of the Menkare Triad, Book 12, and his simple, dark obsidian stone of perpetuity. Anya, Kenty began, his voice deeper and more resonant than usual, stripped of his scholarly veneer. You asked me once how I knew the exact dimensions of a 4th Dynasty stone dresser's cottage, a structure that has never been excavated. Anya frowned, recalling the obscure detail. You said it was archaeological intuition, sir, but it was mathematically perfect. Kenty Rhodes picked up the obsidian pendant. That stone, he said, turning it over in his palm, was part of the very core of Khufu's pyramid. I helped place it there. He looked directly at her. His eyes that had absorbed the light of 40 centuries, were piercing. Anya, I was Kenty. I did not study the Old Kingdom. I built it. He didn't wait for her denial. He launched into a rapid-fire recitation, speaking in a fluid, perfect ancient Egyptian that no living person should be able to pronounce accurately, citing the pyramid texts and the protocols for a 5th Dynasty courtier's daily schedule. He then shifted smoothly into flawless Demotic, reciting the official decree from the Rosetta Stone, Getty Images, Book X, correcting subtle phonetic errors Champollion himself had missed. The proof of ages. Anya sat paralyzed, her scientific mind warring with the impossible reality before her. Kenty gave her the final proof, something only a witness could know. The Sema Tawi stele you helped me retrieve, Book 13, we found a small secondary inscription on its base that confirmed its date. But on the reverse side, hidden inside the stone, is a small cavity sealed with gypsum. Inside that cavity is a linen fragment. I placed it there during the Middle Kingdom. It contains a curse against anyone who breaks the symmetry of the 2 lands. It is written in my hand. He paused, the silence of the room swelling with the weight of history. No machine can scan it, no tool can detect it. Only a man who lived that day knows it is there. Anya slowly reached for the obsidian stone. Her fingers traced the faint etchings Kenty had carved over the millennia. The name of the lost scribe Ayaret, the small hieroglyph of the composite bow, Book 4. She felt the profound, cold energy radiating from the stone. She did not scream or flee. She was a scholar, and the scale of the truth was too magnificent to reject. She understood. The unbroken thread, she finally whispered, the fear replaced by awe. It's you. Kenty smiled, a complex, tired smile that held all the sorrow of the past and the cautious hope for the future. Now you are bound to it as well, Anya. Your duty is to ensure the truth survives in this new digital age. You are my legacy. You are the final keeper. He had finally shared his burden. The ancient Egyptian sage and the modern digital scholar had forged a new bond, ensuring the Chronicle of Kemet would endure, protected by a shared secret for centuries to come.
Hey friends, thank you very much for staying with us for so long with your valuable time. If you want more stories like this, or if you want, then please subscribe to our Boring History for Delete channel 1,500 times and complete 2,000 likes on this video. And tell us in the comments how the story was, or what kind of stories you like to hear. Next week, I will bring stories according to your comments. But don't forget to like and comment. I love you so much.